You're about to unlock something most men never realize until it's too late. The fact that the most interesting man in the room is rarely the one talking. He's the one everyone keeps glancing at, the one conversations seem to orbit without. Him chasing them, the one whose silence feels heavier than other men's words. Most guys think attention is earned by performance, by jokes, stories, opinions, energy. But silence, used correctly, flips the entire social dynamic without effort. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to use silence to become the man people lean toward instead of away from. Picture a crowded room. Music low, conversations overlapping, laughter bouncing off the walls. There's always one guy talking too much, filling every gap like silence might expose him. His stories get louder, his gestures wider, his words slightly desperate. Across the room there's another man. He's not hiding. He's not shy. He's just still. He listens. He lets pauses hang a half-second longer than feels polite. When he speaks, it's short, grounded, almost inconveniently calm. And somehow, people keep turning back to him. Not because he's trying to impress, but because silence creates gravity. Most men misunderstand silence as absence. They think if they're not talking, they're invisible. That's the myth that keeps you trapped. In reality, silence is presence without leakage. When you talk too much, you leak intention. You reveal your need to be seen, approved, validated. The room feels that need even if they can't explain it. Silence, on the other hand, withholds. It creates a vacuum. Humans are wired to fill vacuums with curiosity. When you don't explain yourself, people start explaining you to themselves. And whatever they imagine is almost always more powerful than whatever you would have said. Think about the last time someone you respected went quiet mid-conversation. Not awkward quiet. Intentional quiet. That pause probably made you lean in. Your mind started racing. Did I say something wrong? Is he thinking? What's he about to say? Silence shifts the psychological burden onto the other person. They start investing. An investment is the seed of interest. Here's where most guys mess it up. They try to copy silence without the inner posture to support it. They go quiet. But inside they're screaming, panicking, counting seconds, waiting to be rescued. That kind of silence feels hollow. People sense it instantly. It's not magnetic, it's uncomfortable. Real silence only works when it comes from internal. Fullness, not emptiness. When you're silent because you don't need to rush, not because you're afraid to speak. Imagine silence like a loaded pause in a movie. The hero doesn't talk while the villain rambles. He just looks, breath steady, eyes locked. That silence communicates certainty, self-control, and danger all without words. In real life, the man who can stay relaxed in silence signals the same thing. I'm good. I'm not chasing. I don't need to perform. That signal hits the nervous system of everyone around you. Try this experiment the next time you're in a conversation. When someone finishes speaking, don't respond immediately. Let a beat pass, not an exaggerated pause. Just long enough to feel it. Watch what happens. Most people will keep talking. They'll add details, clarify, reveal. More than they planned. Your silence becomes a mirror that makes them expose themselves. And the more they talk, the more invested they become while you stay centered. Silence also filters your words. When you talk less, what you say carries more weight. A man who speaks rarely is listened to automatically. Not because he's louder, but because he's selective. His words feel considered, grounded. You don't need clever lines when your presence already commands attention. One calm sentence after a pause can land harder than a 5-minute monologue. There's a deeper layer here that most men never touch. Silence forces you to confront yourself. When you stop filling space with noise, you feel your own insecurities. rise up, the urge to explain, to justify, to prove. That discomfort is the exact edge where growth happens. Every time you resist breaking silence out of need, you train yourself to be less reactive and more grounded. Over time, that calm becomes your baseline. Think of silence as emotional self-control made visible. You're showing the world you're not hijacked by impulse. You don't need to win every moment. You don't need to dominate the conversation. To feel dominant. Real dominance is being able to say nothing and be completely at ease with it. The irony is that silence doesn't make you less interesting. It makes everything around you more interesting in relation to you. People project. Stories, depth, mystery. They wonder what you're thinking. And mystery is the currency of attraction, respect, and intrigue. Once you understand this, you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested without chasing. And that's where things begin to shift in ways most men never anticipate. Silence doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you experience yourself in the moment. When you stop racing to fill space, time slows down. You notice posture, breath, eye contact, micro-reactions. You're no longer inside your head rehearsing lines. You're actually there. And presence is what most men lack, not confidence. Picture a one-on-one conversation. She's talking about her day, her frustrations, her stories looping slightly, as people's stories always do. The average guy jumps in too fast. He relates. He fixes. He one-ups with a story of his own. He thinks connection is built by similarity. But watch the man who understands silence. He listens without interrupting. When she finishes, he doesn't rush to respond. He looks at her for a second longer than expected, calm, attentive. Then he says something simple, maybe just that. Sounds exhausting, and stops. No advice, no performance. That pause after his words does more than paragraphs ever could. She feels seen, not managed. And she keeps talking not because he's entertaining her, but because his silence feels safe. This is where silence becomes power. Not manipulative power, but grounded authority. People feel regulated around you. Your nervous system isn't frantic, so there starts to settle. That's attractive in a way most men can't fake. It's not excitement, it's depth. And depth lasts. A lot of guys believe attraction is about momentum. Keep things moving. Keep the energy high. Never let it stall. But that mindset is fear-based. It assumes that if things slow down, interest will die. In reality, the opposite is true. Depth requires stillness. Without pauses, there's no contrast. Without silence, words lose shape. Think about music. The notes matter, but the space between them is what creates rhythm. A song with no pauses is just noise. Your conversations work the same way. Silence gives shape to what you say. It creates anticipation. It allows emotion to land. There's a moment that separates boys from men in social dynamics. It's the moment when silence appears, and instead of panicking, you relax. Your shoulders drop. Your breath stays steady. You don't scramble for something clever. You don't apologize with filler words. You let the moment breathe. That single choice rewires how people perceive you. Here's the brutal truth most men don't want to hear. If silence scares you, it's because you're afraid of being judged without words to hide behind. Talking becomes armor. Silence removes it, and that's exactly why it's so effective. It exposes authenticity. When you can be silent and still feel solid, people sense real confidence, not rehearsed confidence, but embodied certainty. There's a scene you've probably lived through. A group setting. Everyone talking. Someone says something slightly awkward. Laughter dies down. Silence hits. Most men rush to save the moment. Jokes. Nervous laughter. Commentary. The man who understands silence does nothing. He lets the awkwardness exist. And oddly enough, the room recalibrates around him. Someone else speaks. Attention breaks naturally. And unconsciously, people register him as emotionally strong. The one who didn't flinch. Silence also protects you from overinvesting. When you talk less, you reveal less. You don't overshare your plans, your hopes, your fears. You let people earn access to your inner world instead of spilling it to anyone who listens. That restraint creates value. Not fake scarcity, but self-respect. Notice how leaders speak. They don't rush. They don't over-explain. They pause. They let questions hang. They're comfortable not being immediately understood. That comfort signals confidence in their own position. You don't need agreement when you're anchored, but silence isn't passive. It's active restraint. You're choosing not to react. You're choosing to stay centered while others move. That choice compounds over time. You become harder to shake, harder to manipulate, harder to read, and paradoxically, more trusted. There's an internal shift that happens when you embrace silence. You stop needing external validation in real time. You don't look for nods, laughs, reassurance. You speak when you have something to say, not to fill space. That independence is felt instantly. People relax around you because they don't feel managed or performed for. And here's the part most men miss. Silence makes you interesting because it makes you selective. Interest is not about output. It's about discernment. When you don't comment on everything, when you don't chase every opening, people assume you have standards, even if you never say it out loud. Eventually, silence becomes your baseline, not a tactic. You're no longer using it. You're simply comfortable with yourself. And comfort with self is contagious. Others start matching your pace. Conversations deepen. Interactions slow down in a good way. Once you reach that point, you realize something quietly dangerous. You don't need to control the room to influence it. You just need to stay grounded while it moves around you. When silence becomes natural, you stop trying to win moments. You let them come to you. And that's when your presence starts doing the work you used to exhaust yourself trying to do with words. There's a subtle test happening in every interaction. People push conversationally to see if you'll overreact, over-explain, or over-indest. They tease. They challenge. They throw out half-statements and watch how fast you rush to fill the gap. Most men fail this test without realizing it. They bite. They justify. They clarify. They try to regain control through speech. Silence passes the test automatically. Imagine someone questioning you. Why are you so quiet? That question isn't curiosity. It's pressure. It's an invitation to defend yourself. The average response is a nervous explanation. The grounded response is a small smile and a pause. Maybe you say, I don't feel the need to talk all the time. Or maybe you say nothing at all. That moment tells them everything. You're not ashamed. You're not rattled. You're not playing their frame. Silence reframes interactions without confrontation. You don't need to dominate or submit. You simply stay centered. That neutrality is powerful. People can't place you easily. And when they can't place you, they pay attention. There's also a darker truth here. Silence exposes other people's insecurities. When you don't rush to reassure, they start questioning themselves. They wonder if they're boring you, if they're being judged. That's not something you weaponize, but it's something you understand. And because you understand it, you don't rush to soothe it unless you choose to. Choice is the key. Silence gives you choice. Think about attraction specifically. Desire lives in the unknown. The more predictable you are, the less tension exists. Talking constantly makes you predictable. Silence keeps things slightly unresolved. Not in a manipulative way, but in a human way. There's room for curiosity, to grow, for imagination to fill in gaps. A man who talks too much answers questions no one asked. A man who understands silence lets questions form. He lets people come to their own conclusions. And those conclusions are often far more flattering than reality. There's a moment late at night, conversation slowing, energy softening, words start to feel unnecessary. Most men panic there. They think the interaction is dying, so they revive it artificially. But that quiet moment is often the doorway to intimacy. Silence shared without tension is one of the strongest bonding experiences there is. It says, I'm comfortable here with you without performing. You don't get that kind of silence by strategy. You earn it by being at ease with yourself, by not needing constant stimulation, by trusting that your presence is enough. Shift happens internally first. You stop narrating your life. You stop filling internal silence with noise. That mental quiet spills outward. Your reactions slow. Your speech simplifies. Your energy settles. And people respond differently without knowing why. You'll notice it in small ways. People wait for you to speak. They ask what you think. They lean in when you finally do talk. Your words land because they're rare. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to repeat yourself. You don't need to convince. Silence also teaches patience. When you're patient, you see patterns others miss. You pick up on shifts in tone, body language, intention. You respond instead of react. That alone sets you apart from most men who live in constant reaction mode. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Silence forces you to give up control. You can't steer every moment with words. You have to trust the interaction to unfold. That trust signals confidence. You're saying, without saying it, I'm okay with wherever this goes. And that's what makes you interesting. Not mystery as an act, but mystery as a byproduct of self-containment. You're not hiding. You're simply not spilling yourself everywhere. Eventually, silence becomes something people associate with you. Not awkwardness, not distance, but depth, calm, stability. When you walk into a room, you don't announce yourself. You don't need to. Your energy arrives before your words ever do. And once you understand that, you stop trying to be seen. You let yourself be felt.